DreAllDay.com.
You're now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get to use those for personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves all of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy, one book, one show. This daily masterclass. Yes, you heard me, daily masterclass that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is, do we need to protect everybody? Does everybody need some form, some layer of protection in life? And I'm really talking more on the not necessarily physical protection. I think we should have cops and a military force, but I mean like an emotional protection. Do we have to shield everybody from all the possible negatives and all the possible calamities and dirty looks and nasty comments and negative energy that could possibly come their way? Now, if you really think about that, that does seem like kind of impossible, but I want to address this, and there's a specific reason why, especially on the heels of what we've been talking about the last few days here on this show. So before I get into that, first of all, let me remind you that I have a text line where I want you to send me a text message and tell me what's the best insight or the worst insight, or you have a question, or you have a challenge or a follow-up comment to anything that I've said here today. Send it to me by texting the number 305-384-6894. Again, 305-384-6894. And when you do get on my text list, by texting that number, and when you get on my text list, you will get my daily motivation text that I send out every morning straight from me. Again, that number is down below in the show notes as well, if you didn't hear it. So there were two stories that I read recently that led to me talking about this topic. There was one where this soccer player who plays for the U.S. men's national team, he shared, and this got amplified by ESPN because I'm not really into soccer. I don't follow it, but I saw it because ESPN amplified it. He was saying that he had been a victim of, quote, racial abuse, close quote, via his social media direct messages. He had been being abused racially with things that people were sending him in his DMs. And then there was the New York Times story, which I gave 2 episodes to, where they talked about how creators were realizing they had signed up for this endless job of creating content, and they weren't making the kind of money that they thought they were going to be making as creators out here. And I talked about that in episode 1878. No such thing as an underpaid entrepreneur. Also, the previous episode, the initial episode on that topic, was episode 1862. If you want to be a creator or influencer, listen to this now. And then the follow-up was 1878. So both of those stories kind of got me thinking about what I'm going to talk about here today. Because in that New York Times story, one of the things that the author mentioned was how these creators who are making all this content, but they're kind of not making the kind of money they thought they would make from creating all this content. It was starting to affect their mental health. They're just feeling bad about themselves and maybe feeling bad about life, and just contemplating every decision they made up to this point because they're not making the kind of money that they thought they would make from creating this content online. What they really got, as I explained in 1862 and in 1878, what they really were getting was a business lesson. They're not being exploited, they're just getting a business lesson of something that was already existing. They just didn't know about it. So if you listen to this show, then you may have a pretty good idea of how I felt about both of these topics when I heard the stories. And it's the following. If you consider a negative comment to be, quote, abuse, close quote, then listen, I and many other people who create content on the internet, if you create enough of it and it draws enough attention, then I think we are all some of the most victimized people in the history of the planet. If every negative comment is categorized as abuse. If you can think of how many negative comments I've received online in the last 16 years, from basketball to talking about this personal development stuff, which doesn't always draw that much negativity, personal development, but especially when I talk about any type of social topic or racial topic, listen, I've seen a lot of negative comments from people, but I don't take them personally. You can't take it personally coming from a nameless, faceless person on the internet. So we can't call all of those things abuse. And in episode 1690, when I talked about the secret that social media is not telling all the people who are creators and users of social media, when you become a full-time creator, they own you, just like I talked about in episode 1862. And that article, as I said, should be taken as a business lesson. But anyhow, let's get into these points here today so I can further articulate on this topic about, I'm answering the question, should everyone be protected? And I'm not talking about physical protection. I'm talking more on the mental and spiritual, emotional side, because it seems like a lot of people are putting out these things that are happening to them mentally and emotionally as if they need someone to come to their rescue. I don't know exactly what they want from this, but let's talk about it. Point number one. The topic once again is, should everyone be protected? I noticed that this angle and approach has become more and more common. Something quote unquote negative is happening to a person, whether it's of their own doing or usually is they're blaming someone else for it. And whether it's negative commentary, whether it's somebody's business or career not going as well as they wanted it to, or maybe someone just doesn't realize what game they're actually in when they finally realize the business that they're really in. All these things could also be summed up in one word. We can call this life. Negative things happen. People say and do negative things towards you. Sometimes you think you're getting into one thing, and then when you really realize what's going on, you notice that it's a different thing. And the people involved, when they realize that life is happening to them, that's a phrase, life is happening, the people involved are framing themselves and being framed by others as innocent victims in these situations. Like creators are victims of, and this is what, as a quote was actually used, they are, quote, victims of an exploitative tech industry, close quote. The tech industry is not exploitative. The tech industry, as I told you in 1690, is set up to give you something free. That's access to the social media apps that we all have taken advantage of. In exchange, they're getting all of our privacy and they're getting our time, and then they monetize both. All right, that's the deal. Now, that was the deal from the very beginning when all these apps started to come out around 2000, between 2005 and 2010. That was the deal back then. It's just now that people are finally realizing it because people are slow. As I told you, 3 things about people. People are lazy, people don't think, and people don't read. So it took them 10 years to figure it out. Now it's exploitative. No, what's exploitative is your lack of discipline in reading and thinking and taking action and being proactive. You would have known this 10 years ago. Like I told you, when I read the contract, most people don't read the terms and conditions, therefore you didn't know what was going on until it got to be, quote unquote, too late. An athlete saying that they're a victim because they're getting negative comments, maybe because you played bad in the game, or maybe somebody's just being negative to you for whatever reason, because there are a lot of negative people in the world. Anyone who can present themselves this way, then they subsequently are being, they're given a platform to tell their story in an attempt that I suppose is to draw sympathy. Now, we used to tell these people, it used to be when people came out with things like this, we would kind of, we would derisively talk about them. Like, listen, stop being a pussy, stop whining, stop complaining about the situation, and just get back to work. If it was a male, we'd say, pull your panties up. And if it was a girl, we say, put your big girl pants on or your big boy pants on. I remember Kobe Bryant using this specific phrase about one of his teammates who was complaining about a situation, or at least Kobe felt like the player wasn't playing hard enough. And Kobe said, look, you got to put your big boy pants on and let's get back to work so we can win this basketball championship. But nowadays, it's kind of like swinging in the other direction. There's this growing audience of people, whether they are the victims themselves or the advocates of these victims, who wants to shield anyone from these possible calamities in life. And I don't think this is a good direction to go in, simply because life happens to everybody. Life is always going to happen to all of us at all times. So if you're trying to shield everybody from anything that could possibly happen to them, well, how's anybody ever going to develop the fortitude to deal with anything? That's the question. But let's move on to point number 2 before I step on the rest of my topic here today. The topic, once again, is, should everyone be protected? Here's how I see it. No one in life, nobody who's listening to this right now, me, you, no one else, wants to be exploited or attacked. We never want to feel like we're being used, disposed of, or ridiculed. I don't think anyone enjoys any of those feelings. However, these things happen. And they happen because life is life. And life is not a controlled experiment where we can control for every possible variable and stop all the negative things and only give people the positive things in life. So this is just, again, it's life. It's not some terrible thing that needs to be eradicated. It's not a disease that we need to immunize people from. This is just something that happens. I don't agree with the angle of people saying, well, we need to stop this from happening at all. Athletes shouldn't be receiving any kind of negative commentary in their DMs, or people who are building their business on social media shouldn't feel like they're being exploited by social media. No, that's the way that it's set up. It's supposed to be like that. That's why social media is worth what it's worth, because they don't have to pay you for basically taking everything from you because you accepted it and you took it for free. Again, it was in the terms and conditions that you agreed to when you signed up for the site in the first place. So I don't agree with the angle of let's try to block any of these negative things from ever happening again. It's impossible. The same way that with the COVID, the coronavirus being out over the last year, that people are saying, oh, we got to get everybody vaccinated and everybody wearing a mask, and we got to slow the spread and flatten the curve and all these phrases that have been said. The virus is never going away. There will be people getting COVID pretty much forever. All right, the same way that people get the cold and the same way people can get the flu and people can get certain things. Even if you have the vaccine, there are people who are still getting the virus. All right, this is happening, and I think we all know of it. We will never completely eliminate this thing from happening, at least not with the current science that we have. Maybe science will advance and we'll catch up to it, but right now, that's not the deal. And why is this? And why am I saying that we don't need to try to eradicate it and completely stop it? At least something like COVID, where people are like, well, we shouldn't do anything. We shouldn't open anything up until we got the virus, quote unquote, under control, which is, that can always change what it means to be under control. It's a good political ploy that a lot of politicians threw out there, which basically gives them free reign to just keep you under control or keep you under their thumb for as long as they feel like it, because they can always change what under control means. But the point is, we can't stop these things from happening, and we shouldn't try to stop them from happening. And I'll tell you why. Because toughness in life is built during the moments that things are happening that we don't want to happen. You develop toughness by going through stuff that you didn't want. You don't develop toughness by going through things that you want. Any of you as a personal trainer, when it comes to, let's say, your fitness or playing a sport, you don't really get better in the sport when the trainer is only putting you through the stuff that you enjoy. You get better and stronger, and you improve your performance in your sport or just your overall fitness and health when your trainer makes you do things that you would never make yourself do. Because, and by the way, if your trainer's not making you do things that you yourself would not do, then you shouldn't have a trainer, because what's the point? All they're doing is having you do the stuff you could do on your own. You don't need to be paying a trainer. You could do that on your own. The purpose of the trainer is to push you past the point where you would ever have pushed yourself. That's the reason that they're there. It's the same thing with a business coach. It's the same thing with any kind of life coaching or any type of mentorship. The whole point is they're going to see things and move you to do things that you otherwise would not see or do by yourself. That's the reason that they exist. And life works the same way. You develop toughness when you go through the stuff that you didn't want. Even if you knew about that stuff, you probably wouldn't put yourself in a position to have to deal with it because you don't enjoy it. But that's what life does. Life puts you in positions that you don't enjoy because it's time for you to grow. And people who grow the most, on purpose, the most voluntarily, and the most efficiently and consistently are the type of people who willingly put themselves in positions that they know that they are not going to enjoy all the way, but they put themselves in a position anyway, and then just force themselves to deal with it. That's how you grow in life. Failed business endeavors, negative interactions, losing a big game, playing terribly in a big moment, or performing terribly when everybody's watching, getting fired from a job. All of those things build mental toughness. Anyone who understands the concept of mental toughness will agree with what I'm saying here. The moments that you hated being in, but you're still allowed to talk about them now, those are the very moments that made you who you are today. It's not the moments that you loved that made you who you are. It's the moments that you hated that made you who you are. Remember that you cannot be tough until or unless you go through things that are tough. You can't be a tough person without going through tough shit. It's kind of like a vaccine. Now, what does a vaccine do? On a basic level, it exposes you to a little bit of the challenging element, the virus or the disease, so that your body, with that little sample, can learn to build defenses against the virus. So if you ever get the full virus, your body's already prepared for dealing with it. That's the purpose of a vaccine. It's the same thing. Going through tough shit in life is a vaccine for more tough shit that's going to happen in the future. But if you just stay locked in your house and avoid any kind of exposure to anything that could possibly happen to you in life, you also avoid building the resistance, and you avoid building the possibility of winning. I told you this, that in life, putting yourself in a position to win comes with it inherently that you're also in a position to lose. If you're not willing to put yourself in a position where you could lose, you are underqualified to be in a position to win. You can't put yourself in a position where you can win a lot but also not have to deal with the possibility of losing. That's what makes winning so great, is that you could have lost. And what makes losing so bad is that you could have won. That's the whole point. But we got to remember, but the National Museum of African American History and Culture says competition is a trait of whiteness. So I guess we're not supposed to be competing and not supposed to be looking at possibilities of winning and losing. That's a tongue-in-cheek statement for those who don't understand my tone there. You can't stay locked in your house, metaphorically speaking, and never put yourself in the line of fire of negative energy, negative comments, negative outcomes, things that you don't want in life, and then say, hey, I'm not winning at all in life. I don't understand why I'm not getting any victory. Listen, you can stay locked in the house if you want, if you just want to stay neutral and maintain the status quo of your life and never advance and allow the world to move forward while you stand still, which means technically you're losing by default. Or you can go outside and put yourself in the line of possibly losing, negative things happening, some terrible outcome happening in your life. As long as you live to talk about it, it will build your toughness. It will be the very thing that you reference when people ask you, how'd you get here? It's not going to be the good stuff. It's going to be the negative stuff, or the stuff that you didn't want. Let's just put it that way. You don't have to call it negative. But if you're not willing to be exposed to a little bit of the virus, aka the vaccine, then your body has not built up the antibodies to be able to fight it if and when it comes along again in the future, or build up the resistances, better way of saying it, to be able to fight it when it comes along in the future. It doesn't mean that without the vaccine you can't deal with it. It just means it's going to hit you all at once, and hopefully you're prepared to deal with it upon first introduction, and some people will be. But you got to deal with it at some point. At some point you're going to deal with it. What y'all got to understand, if we go on more of the scientific level, every single day when you get around other people, you're being exposed to germs every single day. Every day you're being exposed to potential viruses. Every time you come across another human being, if you step outside of your house and you walk down the hallway of a building, or you go outside and you walk past another person, or you touch something and then touch your body or face, or touch your food, or anywhere that you're around other human beings that are breathing, you are being exposed to viruses, you're being exposed to germs, you're being exposed to all kinds of chemicals and all kinds of things floating through the air that are microscopic, that you can't see, but are going into your body. Now, why don't you get sick every day then, if this is true? Because it takes more than just germs to get sick. It takes a certain combination, and combined with the strength of your immune system, combined with the way that your body responds to it. And the more that you expose yourself to and don't get sick, the stronger your body gets. As your immune system is built through that, and built through good habits like exercising and getting sleep and drinking water and eating good food, and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not going to go any deeper into the science. But this is the whole point is, exposing yourself to things is actually what makes you stronger for when you get exposed to something that you're really going to have to fight. Your body's fighting against stuff all day, every day. You just don't feel it because your body is so strong that it doesn't even register on your scale. But when you're fighting against something that you really need to fight against, the stronger your body has been made through exposure, the better it will be able to deal with the real thing when you really got to fight. But if you're not exposing yourself to anything because you're being protected and they're blocking everything from possibly hitting you, when you finally do come across something, because you will, then you are not going to have the capability of defending yourself. And that's when you fold. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, should everybody be protected from everything? Understand something. We can't shield everyone from everything. It's impossible. You can't do it. You can try, but you won't do it. Exposure to risk is your greatest strength against risk. The greatest defense you can have against risk is exposing yourself to as much of it as possible. Why? Because the more you expose yourself to it, the more you build up the defenses and the mental toughness and the internal fortitude with which you will fight against it when you do have to deal with it head on. The risks that you decide to take on in life, even those that beat you, you take a risk and you lose when you take that risk. As long as it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger and it makes you tougher. Those that you beat, they build your confidence. And those that beat you build your toughness. And guess what? You need both. You don't want to be a confident person who has no toughness, because then as soon as you get hit in the mouth, all right, that confidence is going to go away real quick. As the saying goes, everybody has a plan until they get hit in the mouth or punched in the face, however you want to say it. What many people need in life, when they face a tough challenge, they don't need sympathy. Right? They don't need your caring and emotion and compassion. You know what they need? They need someone to tell them, get the fuck up off the floor and get back to doing your job. Put your big boy pants on, like Kobe Bryant told his teammates in the NBA. I remember in 2016, I was sitting outside on Brickell Avenue, which is a very heavily populated street down here in Miami. And I saw this woman and this kid riding on a bike together. And the kid had to be maybe 3 years old. But he was on a two-wheeler, so he knew how to ride. They both had helmets on, and the mom is riding right next to the kid, and they stop at a intersection, like a stop sign. And the kid stopped a little bit too late, lost balance on the bike, and he fell off the bike. The bike fell, he fell. Now, he didn't fall that far because he's only like 3 years old, so it's not like it was a hard fall. But he fell on the ground, and just the emotional falling, the kid looked like he was about to start crying. He looks up at the mom, and I could see his face changing, that he was about to start crying. But he looked up at the mom, and the mom had lifted his bike up by the handlebars. She was holding it upright again, and she wasn't reacting at all to the fact that he had fell. She wasn't even reacting to the look of the tears that were about to form on his face to cry about the fact that he fell off the bike. She wasn't reacting. She was holding the bike up, and she just gestured to him, get back on the bike. And all of a sudden, that look, that crying face that came over the kid's face went away. He hopped right back on the bike, and they started riding again. And they rode right past me, and the kid was in the lead. Mom was following him. And I tell you that story to tell you this. Because the mom didn't react to what was about to be an emotional reaction, the kid didn't have an emotional reaction. Because the mom didn't feel like she needed to protect him, she didn't hop off the bike and say, oh my God, poor baby, so sorry that you fell, are you okay? If she would have did that, he would have started crying because he would have matched her energy. But when she showed her energy was still poised and not overreacting to the fact that he had fell, he stopped reacting. He became poised and he hopped right back on the bike, and all of a sudden he probably forgot that he even fell off the bike. Now I remember I was telling Anna this story of what happened when that kid fell off the bike. This had to be about 5 years ago. And she said to me, well, look, one of the reasons why that kid and the parent were able to respond that way to him falling off the bike is probably because, this is an important point, the mom probably gives that kid enough emotional attention in every other area of life so that when he does fall off the bike, because he gets enough emotional attention all the other times, he doesn't need to become a drama queen because he fell off his bike. And that goes right along with what I'm saying right here. Because he has already had the resistance built up, so to speak, that emotional resistance built up, when something does happen, he doesn't have to get all emotional about it. And the mom knows that she doesn't have to get emotional about it because she's given him enough of that in other areas of life. And he doesn't have to overreact. Now, if he didn't have that, maybe he would have overreacted. And there was another situation where I saw a kid fall off a bike and he became a complete drama queen. His dad, who was riding with him, he became a drama queen. There was this whole scene outside in the middle of South Beach, and it was actually kind of ridiculous the way the kid was just screaming like somebody had shot him and he had only fell off a bike. But anyway, all that said, let's recap today's class, which is, should everyone be protected? I read a couple stories of people just talking about their negative emotions that they're feeling because of something that got said to them or something that has happened to them or around them. And it seems like everyone is just trying to protect everybody from any possible emotional pain these days. Is this something that we actually want? I don't think so, and I'm going to tell you why. Point number one, I've noticed that this angle and approach is becoming more and more common, and something negative, so to speak, is happening to a person or to people, such as negative comments, and I mean like emotional things, spiritual things, not a physical thing. And most of these things we call life. Negative commentary, your business isn't working, you realize that you're in a game that you don't really want to be in. We just call that life happening. That's what we used to call it, at least. And now these people who it's happening to, they're being framed as victims of the situation. And I don't think this is a way that we want to go. We used to tell these people, pull your panties up, put your big boy pants on, and let's get back to work. But now there's a growing audience who wants to shield everyone from anything negative that could possibly happen. I don't think this is the right approach. And here's why. Point number two, no one wants to be exploited, attacked, used, disposed of, or ridiculed, but these things happen in life. I don't think we need to try to block them all from happening. It's kind of like, yes, people can get skin cancer and sunburn, but we don't want to block the sun, right? That doesn't make any sense. Toughness is built in the moments that we don't want in life. Failed businesses make you a stronger business person. Negative interactions build your emotional toughness. Losing a big game or getting fired from a job, anyone who understands mental toughness understands the moments that you hated in your history are the ones that made you who you are today. You can't be tough without going through tough things. It's like a vaccine. It exposes you to a little bit of the challenging element so that your body can build defenses against it. But if you never get exposed to anything, now you got to fight it 100% when it comes at you 100%. Maybe you'll survive, maybe you won't. But maybe you want to get the vaccine. Your personal choice. Point number 3, we can't shield everyone from everything. Exposure to risk is your greatest strength in life. The risks that you take on, even those that beat you, as long as they don't kill you, make you stronger and tougher. And when you beat them, it builds your confidence. But if you have confidence with no toughness, as soon as you get hit in the mouth, that plan goes out the window. What many people need in life when they face a tough challenge is not more sympathy and compassion. What they need is someone to tell them, get up off the ground, get back on your bike, and let's keep riding. All right, don't sit there and cry. Get on the bike and let's keep riding, and they'll forget about it that fast. Send me a text. Tell me the best thing you got from today's class. My number is 305-384-6894. Work on your game. Dre all day.